everybody. My name is Mikko, Särelä, and I'm going to be teaching a little bit about hypnosis. We're going to do a few simple sorts of practices that are not hypnotic inductions or such things per se, but techniques that you may find useful if you do LARPs, play LARPs or do role-playing games or in social life in other situations. One is a guided meditation and another one is kind of a small exercise that we'll talk more about later. And then we're going to have a demonstration of hypnosis with guitar later on today. But I would like to start by asking you about what you know about hypnosis and what kind of things you think hypnosis is. So, any volunteers?
I honestly don't know what hypnosis is, but I got super interested in when I listened to podcasts from a guy in the US, and he was talking about it for 1.5 hours. He was holding workshops and stuff. And I tried to find some kind of started looking at YouTube, but I couldn't really find a way to get into it. Mm-hmm. But I can't really decide whether it's magical or if it's if it's real. It sounds a little bit too strange and true.
Just one short question. You probably don't need any technical things.
I won't need any technical things aside from that kind of
okay.
And then the other thing is that Ropecon made a request if it's okay for them to record this workshop that I give you. And if anybody would like us not to do that, you might be seen on that at some point. Then we'll just turn it around and not do it. So, okay, we'll keep it recording and that'll be fine. So you've seen something that you're not really sure if it's true or not.
It's working, but I mean, could I be a part of this? Is this something that I could do?
Yes, you can.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, any other things?
I've read a bit about that psychology of the thing and stuff about suggestion and influencing people, so charismatic speakers and such. Haven't really seen anything. I've read some things about using trances and relaxation practices. Not so much the stage hypnosis parts and such. But just want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. Yes?
I've read a fair bit, mostly about stage hypnosis or material and such. But sort of the thing that I find interesting is that hypnosis seems to be whatever people believe it is. When people believe that that you can be forced into hypnosis, that happens much more.
So a few things about me, as I believe I mentioned, my name is Mikko Särelä, and what I do is recreational hypnosis. So I don't do stage hypnosis. I do this as a hobby, and there's sort of a smallish, let's say some thousands, some tens of thousands of people who are into recreational hypnosis, and especially erotic hypnosis, and who do things online, they do things live, they organize conventions like this one, where they do all kinds of fun stuff with hypnosis and figure out ways of doing that safely, in a safe and sane and a consensual manner, so that everybody can be happy and so on. So it's a hobby, and I've been doing it for something like 5 years now. For the past year, I've been teaching different kinds of groups in different places about hypnosis and how to use it and such things. And that gets me to the first caveat or disclaimer. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a hypnotherapist. I don't have any certification for this kind of work. And if you go talk with the people who do this as a hobby. You talk with those who do have a certification or those who don't. The sort of one clear line that everybody wants to keep is that when you're doing this as a hobby for fun, you don't do the therapy stuff. If something seems like you're trying to help a person fix some mental problem, don't. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of them is that it's actually rather simple to hypnotize people. But understanding human mind and understanding how to work with human mind so that you fix the actual problems requires quite a bit more knowledge. So by doing this as a hobby, you're not qualified to do therapy, so don't even try. I'll tell a quick story and then I'll take your comment. So as an example, I've heard this story that there was a person who had an eating disorder. I think it was bulimia, and then somebody who was in a relationship with them hypnotized them and then told that you don't have a need to overeat anymore. Her eating disorder vanished. But what happened instead was that she had this some other drive to be out of control, which sort of showed itself as bulimia. Instead, she became a sex addict and started having all kinds of sex without protection and other sorts of dangerous things with all kinds of people. So the way that hypnotherapists work is that they try to figure out what's the underlying cause and make a very small tweak there that will then reverberate as changes in how people behave. And if you're not a therapist, you're not qualified to do that. And even if you are, and you're doing it with someone you love or somebody you care about, you can't do that properly because we humans cannot separate our own when we're emotionally attached, we can't separate our own well-being and the well-being of the other person from each other. And we might end up doing something that benefits us instead of them. Okay?
And even if you're not planning to do therapeutic hypnosis, there's always the risk that I think that the person that is hypnotized is getting in such a vulnerable state that there's always the risk that something comes up, like opening a Pandora's box if they have an underlying trauma or something that even they have not thought about, and they can't have foreseen that they would be triggered. But if something comes up, I think this is one of the hobbies or practices where you have to be like super alert to like draw the line and say, okay, this is going now in a direction that I can handle. Please seek help others.
Yeah, and also I'll get back to this issue later on when I talk a little about what are the different parts of a sort of hobbyist recreational hypnosis scene.
Yeah.
The first part is pre-negotiation, where especially if you don't know the other person, you haven't hypnotized with them a lot before, you should go through everything that you're going to do.
Yeah.
So that the person who is going to be hypnotized can sort of think through, are there any things that might touch to something that might be traumatic for me, or perhaps you were thinking of making her imagine that they're in a swing, and then the person who's going to be hypnotized, but I have motion sickness, so that's not going to be fun for me. Actually, it might be quite something else. So it's really important to go through all the kind of things that you're going to do from safety perspective, but also from for a couple of other reasons. But now I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, and I'll give you a brief sort of 5-minute or so sort of history of hypnosis. If you look at ancient traditions or texts from almost any culture, you can see that there are religious leaders or priests or other kind of shamans or so on who can do mystical things. And the amount of information that we have from there is quite clear that they utilize trance states and some kind of hypnosis even if they don't call it. And you look at, for example, the Old Testament and the priests in the Egypt who did all kinds of wondrous things. It's quite clear, at least for me, that it's hypnosis that is at least partly utilized. You see people in religious cults where they, or organizations where they hear the voice of the God, that is most likely hypnosis being utilized. Stigmata, how many of you know what stigmata is? So that's the sort of a person getting nail marks in their hands. That's a hypnotic phenomenon. I know some people in the recreational hypnosis sort of circles who can get a sunburn if they are hypnotized to think that they are on a beach with where it's hot and the sun is shining and so on. So for some people you can actually have rather strong bodily reactions to.
And real somatic reactions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then, on the other hand, if you look at shamanistic traditions or voodoo and so on, these are all kind of traditions that play on trance states and creating a belief system for the people so that it is easy for them to react in ways that for a traditional Westerner, it seems like it's magic, but it's really not. It's just part of the belief system that does kind of weird things. Then getting into Western hypnosis. In our modern societies, hypnosis as we see, you can say began with Mesmer in the 18th century. He figured out that he could do all kinds of funny things by hypnotizing people. He believed that there was this sort of animal spirit that transfers to the subject and he can use that for healing powers or such things, but that was later on refuted, surprisingly. But Mesmer is actually a very important character in Western sort of image of a hypnotist. He had a very authoritative style. You now go under. It's very sort of authoritative, very flashy. He wore kinds of things that look different and so on. And there was this belief that that is how it needs to be. That the hypnotist should be very sort of hierarchically on the one who is on the sort of higher position to be very authoritative, take space and make sure that the other one is sort of subservient or submissive to the other and so on. And this tradition continued all the way until the sort of years after the Second World War. And if you look at, there's all kinds of people like Sigmund Freud who have been using hypnosis as part of their work. I sometimes wonder whether Freud's idea about this, the sort of conscious me, the subconscious, and the super id, whether those actually come from his work with hypnosis, because you actually, especially if you reinforce that, you sometimes could end up working with people so that they talk with you, but they don't remember anything about the hypnosis session afterwards. And you might end up talking about the kind of things that block a person person from doing something. So you have all these three components there. Which I should, by the way, say, people can forget what happened during the hypnosis. It's not the default state. And everybody can remember if you, especially if you remind them that they can remember what happened during the hypnosis. Yes?
Can you tell somebody not to remember, or tell somebody to remember?
You can ask somebody not to remember or tell them not to remember. And for some people, it's easy not to remember. For some people, it's not so easy to forget things.
Yeah.
In hobby circles, it's considered a skill that is quite fun. And people actually spend time trying to learn what are the ways in which my brain could be made to forget things that happen during the session.
Yeah, but you have to want to forget.
You have to want to forget and you have to feel safe to forget. But again, people are different in how easily they rely on others. If you're a person who is very easily led by other people, who easily trusts other people, it might be easy for you to forget things as well, even to a point where it's not healthy for you. So it's a good idea to understand your own limitations when playing with something like this. But getting back to this history, after Second World War II, there was this psychologist, therapist called Milton Erickson, who used hypnosis as part of the therapy work that he did. And he developed a very unique style of doing hypnosis where there was, most of the time, there was no authoritative way of speaking at all. He did not tell people what they should do or think or feel. Instead, he used indirect language. So, indirect language means that if it feels right for you, you can stand up whenever you feel it. That's the indirect way of saying the same thing as an authoritative person would just say, stand up. And the nice thing about this is that the human mind interprets this kind of permission with less sort of suspicion than a direct command, which means that it's very much, often much easier to get people to the right frame of mind when you use permissive language, indirect language, than when you're using direct authoritative. There's personality differences though. Some people really enjoy that direct authoritative, so if you're playing with people, you should try to figure out what style is good for them. It also utilizes a lot of kind of wicked creations, like a double bind. A double bind is giving the other person a false choice. So you give them two choices that all lead to something that I want to happen. So you can say, for example, it's okay if you're getting tired of sitting, it's okay for you to stand now or sometime later during this talk. And then your mind starts working with that, and at some point it decides that I want to stand. And it's because I did not give you the option of just continuing to sit. Erickson did a lot of great work in developing modern hypnosis, but he was also kind of shitty when it comes to consent and giving people agency in their own lives and so on. So if you read up on him, you should know that he's kind of controversial. if you think about back, you go into 50s and 60s and think about how people actually in psychology, in the military science circles, thought about humans at that time. They did all kinds of very subtle experiments and things that you could never pass today, because humans were not really thought of sort of self-governing people in that way that we tend to think today. So it's part of that time. People didn't really think about sort of the right for people to direct their own lives in similar ways as we do now. So it's part of history, important part, and we can learn from that, but you should not take everything they did and say that it's okay to do those things now, because it's not. Then there was, hypnosis was for a long time thought that, okay, this is something that is kind of a wacko thing because there was no proof that it actually works, or some people thought that it works and some people it's magic and whatever. So there was a time when it was kind of thought as part of stuff with pain, healing and other things. And this started changing in the 90s, so a bit more than 20 years ago, when MRI scans became affordable for research. And people working on doing research on hypnosis, they started making experiments. You put the person in an MRI scan so that you can get a nice scan of their brains, what happens in their brains when you hypnotize them and then make them do a test. For example, you take 3 groups, one group that is not hypnotized, you tell them the suggestive things and then tell them that they can do whatever they like. For example, imagine that you can't move your hand, and then we tell people to, okay, try to move your hand. And they wait like this because they can still move it. Then you take a second group who is told that, imagine that you're hypnotized and that you can't move your hand. And then we tell them, okay, try to move your hand. And then they play around with it and not move their hand. And then you have a third group that is hypnotized and to not be able to move their hand. And then you just tell them, okay, try it. And you see which parts of their brain lit up. And the 2 latter groups, you can see clear difference in which parts of their brains lit up. Also, if you do, let's say, hypnotic anesthesia, basically taking away all feeling of any kind of touch or pain in one part of the body, and then you play with it. Or you don't do that, and you play with it and do something that is painful. You can see that for one person, the areas that are responsible for showing that there's pain, they lit up like a Christmas tree, and for the other person, they don't. So it is actually something real that we can measure in our brains. And this is about as far as we are when it comes to science. There's still the question, what is it? How does it work? And the answer is, we don't know. There are competing theories that are contradictory, and probably none of them is exactly right. And we don't really have the tools yet to find out either. Before we're dead, we might know what it is. I think we probably will, but it'll still most likely take several decades to sort of uncover the exact sort of phenomena that causes these trance states and how it works. So that's the quick history lesson. Any questions on that? Okay, so next I would like to do a small guided meditation. And This is actually a technique that can also be used for inducing hypnotic trance. And I have done so, but today we're just going to do a small guided meditation. The purpose of this is for you to be able to get in touch of the sensory ways in which your brains sort of imagine things. So I would like you to take a nice and comfortable position and close your eyes. And once you're comfortably seated, you remember that it's a very sunny and beautiful day today. So imagine yourself on a beach, so that the weather is just right, the temperature is just right to be comfortable. You can see the sky, sunny sky with blue there, perhaps a few clouds, and you can see the water and some waves coming to the shore. You can hear the waves when they come shore as they break into the beach. And you can feel the sand beneath you. You can also feel the air around you. Perhaps it's moving a little bit. If there's any trees nearby, you might hear the leaves do a little bit of a rustle, or birds on the sky. And you can just relax and enjoy this wonderful day at a beach when you have absolutely nothing that you have to do, and you can just enjoy it there. You can now enjoy it for a little while, and when you're ready to come back, I want you to open your eyes and look back in this direction. And then those who are still enjoying the vacation, now's a good time to come back. Welcome back. How many of you could see the beach? You can see that most of you could, but not everybody. How many of you heard things happen on the beach? So quite a few on this time. How many of you felt things like the air or the sand or so? So make a point to remember these, because a lot of time people don't really have a grasp on what are the senses that we use for imagining things in our brains. And it actually makes your life a little bit simpler if you do. Yes?
It came to my mind, is it possible to hypnotize somebody who is a fantastic, who misses the ability to imagine things that they haven't seen, or to create the pictures in their head?
So I have a fantasia myself.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I can be hypnotized, but you cannot hypnotize me by visual imagery. If you start talking about visual imagery, I will just come back out of trance like this, because it's like my brain goes like, cannot compute. There's something. So, but you can, for example, do the same, talking about hearing things or about sensing touch with me, and I'll drop to those very nicely.
Okay. So the incantation doesn't include all the senses?
For me, it's just visual.
Yeah.
I think for most people that I've seen talk about it, it's just visual. For some people, it's sort of all sensory things.
Yeah.
But even those, there's some of the hypnotic techniques don't really rely on any kind of image sensory things in your brain.
Okay.
Which gets back to the other thing that we know about hypnosis. Hypnosis is, you could basically say, a combination of a couple of things. or a trance is a combination of a couple of things. One is that you are in an intense state of focus. So you're really intensely focused on something. To the extent that, we usually have this sort of intense focus and this searching focus working both at the same time. And hypnosis is an intense state of focus where the sort of searching focus just disappears when we focus on that one thing. And that is the reason why people often have this sort of experience of other things disappearing, because that sort of searching for clues of things that you should react to vanishes when you focus intensely on one thing. There are other things where that happens. A flow state tends to be such. Meditative trances are also such things, and so on. And there's actually a lot of things that we do in our lives where we enter some kind of a trance that is not that indistinguishable from a hypnotic trance. So as an example, how many of you have been on some kind of social media and lost track of time and realized that half an hour or an hour just passed and you didn't know where it went? You were in a hypnotic trance when you did that. And that's actually, for me, that is far more scary than any play that I do with anybody, because there's nobody controlling what kind of things I sort of interact with when I'm...
I didn't consent to losing this half an hour.
Yes. So, intense focus, what was the other thing? Yes, the other thing when it comes to sort of hypnotic contact between the two people is that your mind is sort of prepared and taught itself in that moment to do whatever the hypnotist tells you to. And a very sort of typical technique for getting that started is for hypnotists to tell you something that is true. You start with, as you breathe in, you might notice that sitting on that chair is heavy. You've been sitting there for a while, so definitely it is. Or you can start to notice that you blink as you're going into a trance. The hypnotist notices that the person is starting to blink before they notice themselves, because they are focused for somewhere else, and they just bring the attention to that. So what the hypnotist is saying is true, so the other part must be true as well. So I must be going to a trance. So it's kind of playing around with this, sort of saying something that is absolutely true, saying something that can be interpreted as true, and then saying something that can be made to become true, and you end up with a person that is in a trance state and can do all kinds of funny things. Getting back to these sort of senses that you could sense, different ways that you could sense that imagery. You can also sometimes pick up cues of how other people think through the way they talk. You might have a person talk about gut feeling. It's sort of this itch that makes me wonder whether something is happening, and so that's probably a person whose mental imagery is very strongly touch-based. Whereas if somebody is painting the sky and sort of using a lot of visual metaphors, they might be a very visual person. But if you're doing hypnosis, I found that it's much better to do this kind of an exercise and ask people rather than try to guess. Any questions so far?
Well,
beach, experience we did. Was the question about feeling the sand and the wind kind of was about were you supposed to actually feel? I was kind of supposing how to remembering, okay, so sand, yeah, I remember how sand feels, okay, so probably like that, then yeah, sure, I think wind. Windy places, yeah, okay, it feels like that, but that doesn't sound like.
I think that sounds like how I process visual things. So when I'm asked to imagine a sunset, I'm sort of bringing to mind the sort of concept of a sun, low on the horizon, the sort of concept of perhaps some water, concept of the colors, but I don't see them. There's sorts of concepts that I just bring together so that I can talk about it. And it sounds like something, you talk about something similar, sort of, rather than actually.
Yeah, I didn't feel anything on my skin. I was.
So, how many of you have, let me ask it this way. If you imagine a finger touching the top of your spine, very softly and going downwards. The funny thing is that those people who are very sort of feel-based, you'll see them do this because they actually feel it. Those who are not will sort of imagine that what it would be like to happen. So there's a difference there as well. You can actually, people who can sort of actually feel this way, you can either have them imagine that they have very different kinds of clothes and they feel how those clothes feel and so on. So, and those who are visual might be able to see their clothes in a very different light. I once played with a person who was dressed all black, and we made it so that whenever somebody, one of the two of us that was playing said a keyword, it would become this sort of pink dress that she was wearing, and she was always like, oh my God, what's happening? So, like that. So there's a definite difference between imagining that what it would be like if you saw this, and between actually feeling. And those who are sort of kinesthetic, basically touch-based, they actually feel it. Some feel it so strongly, as I mentioned earlier, that they can actually get sunburns from this exercise if you let them in the sun for too long.
I think this is also a skill that can be like trained. I know myself that I've 3 years I've been got much more sensitive to like really experience the things rather than just imagining them. But it hasn't always been so. So it's like
And I've heard people say that if you want to sort of get better at feeling things in your body, yoga can be a really good practice for that. I don't know of any research saying that, but I know people in the community who say that it's very useful and helpful. And I can kind of imagine that because yoga is about, one part is about it is being attentive to how things feel in your body when you're doing all kinds of things. That's not all yoga is, but that's one of the things that it is. So now I have another exercise for you, for which I would like you to find a partner that you don't know. And you can get up, you can stand up during this exercise if you want to. You can pick your own partner if you really want to, but this is much better done with somebody you don't know. Does everybody have a partner? Can you face each other so that you can see each other? And what I want you to do now is to look each other in the eye. Just look. Now you can stop and look here. How do you feel?
Nice and interesting.
Okay.
It's easier, a lot easier in a context where permission is given
Okay.
to like look in the eye because just randomly somewhere else it would be very awkward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did anyone feel sort of awkward or uncomfortable at all? Okay. Doing this with role players is really hard. Usually, more than half people, when I've done this, more than half of the people say that it's really uncomfortable looking the other person in the eye because you become easily very self-conscious. What does the other person think of me? How do I look? And so on. Which comes from this sort of anxiety, do I belong, and so on. And it can make this looking into the eyes of another person very frustrating and not a fun thing. Now I'd like to teach you a small trick that you can also use when you're LARPing or doing other kind of things, which goes like this. I would like you to close your, sort of face each other, and then close your eyes. And find something or someone that you love, and feel the love for that. And once you have found it and you can maintain it in your heart and mind, you can slowly open your eyes and look at the other person in their eyes. And if you lose that focus, you just close your eyes and find it again, and then slowly open it. And you can just be there and be comfortable, watch the other person, and have that love in your eyes. And you can just relax. And be there. And just watch. Then when you're ready to do so, you can turn your eyes back here. Did it change? Okay, how did it change?
I was more focused on myself and my thoughts and feelings, and I couldn't help smiling.
Okay.
I started getting a little bit shy because I felt like a power exchange relationship with the person. So I was like, okay, now it's a little bit awkward to look straight in the eye.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay. I thought it was a bit easier. I mean, it was difficult, it was uncomfortable, but sure.
I felt like it was a bit more uncomfortable.
Okay.
So that's just me.
No, it's not you. But I don't know, it's just because I'm picturing my nephew,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really confused. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the tricks that when I started doing hypnosis I learned is to sort of find this core feeling from inside before looking another person in the eyes. When I'm looking at somebody I don't know in the eyes, because it gives me the sort of possibility to focus on the other person instead of my insecurities. And at the same time, what it does is that the other person can actually see that I'm in a position to be open about my feelings, which me, and able to help them, which makes me a trustworthy partner. And I understand that depending on what kind of love you pick, it might be easier or harder, such as, for example, the power exchange thing.
This makes me think about like love relationships where you probably playing with a person you don't know and you're supposed to have like a 20-year marriage or something like that. I think that it's also easier to get to the immersive state if you are concentrating on the feeling you already feel to someone else, and then make like the right hormones flowing in your brain and like the right messages in your brain, and then just pick the target and you can tell your brain that okay, this is a person that is somehow linked to these hormones that are flowing.
And you can also sort of use the connection to, if you both do it at the same time, you can sort of build this sort of non-verbal communication that is part of any sort of good ongoing relationship. So that you build that foundation very quickly for the love. And that's actually one of the reasons why I choose this exercise for in this convention, because I think it would be a very valuable tool for LARPs.
Yeah, and it's crazy that if you both strongly enough believe that you know each other well, you kind of feel like it's in the
And
state.
you could also do it with other emotions. So you could, for example, the two people who are these sort of huge enemies and have always been, you could go to that person and suggest that, okay, let's do this exercise that we sit here, stand here, we both close our eyes, find something that we hate, and then we open our eyes and let that grow on us. Of course, then after the game, you would have to sort of sit down and sort of pull that apart so that it doesn't linger. But
Yeah, because that's actually what I was thinking, because it
yes, you can sit down. Sorry.
reminds me of method acting and how notoriously hard it is sometimes to get out of that state, and how a lot of loves build into your own life. And maybe if you have a trick for getting into that relationship, like is there something that makes it easier to snap out of it as well?
One thing that I've been using myself sometimes is I try to connect the feelings I have in a game, not to the sort of way the other person looks, but the way they act. And I still get bleed because they're real emotions. I remember one wonderful person that I played with, whom I asked to marry in one of the games. And it took me several days, but you know, when we met, you could see that the other person was getting back to the expressions and ways of talking and so on that are themselves rather than the character, and it kind of just vanished. But if I had focused on how they look, then I think it would be more likely to continue after the game, or it might be harder because it would be connected to something that my brain gets a fix every time we see.
And so very, as a person that is very easily like thrown into immersion and bleed and stuff, I just, recently I've learned other like little bit less heavy ways to learn, but my usual way is just to like I know in my schedule and my calendar that okay, after this intensive game there's going to be like 1 week or 2 weeks where I'll get into this bleed now and then, and I just know it in beforehand and tell myself that okay, this is fine, this is not going to, like, this doesn't mean that I'm still there, or this doesn't mean that these feelings are something I need to act on or something like that, and just like live through them and linger in them as long as it lasts, and just, yeah, I know I need like a leave after learning something like that.
And I think that's a great thing to think through beforehand.
Yeah.
Also, I really love doing analysis, and especially if I was playing with somebody who also is willing to do that, it's really fun for me to sit down for a cup of coffee and analyze all those feelings that it brought up through and through, because it also makes it sort of simpler, because they're not awkwardly lingering between us, but there's something that we just analyze through and have fun with even after the game.
It seems to me that in contrast to method acting, when you can spend inordinate amount of time embodying the character and sort of building that, and whereas in contrast to focused exercises like this, do you think that sort of the effort to sort of normalize the thing you programmed with an exercise is sort of on the same par as the initial exercise? So that you do the enemies exercise, for example, beforehand, and then afterwards you do that. That was this great person in the park and played my enemy, but we had a good time together. Focus on them, then focus on them to sort of zero out my mortal enemy.
I think it depends, because I know for some situations it's just enough that the other person comes after the game and says, "We had a lot of fun, great game," and that would be quite enough. But then if it, let's say, was something that caused sort of fear reactions or something which might not be sort of as easily handled, then you might have to sort of sit down and work with it a little more. So it very much depends on what kind of emotions and how deeply they go into the sort of into your person and so on. So I think it depends. And I think it would be very useful to, in this kind of situation where you play something that has been emotionally raw, if you can be open to the possibility of it taking very little or a little bit more to sort of play it out. Now I'd like to do the demonstration next. So let's take a chair. This. So hypnosis scene consists of 5 parts. I'm going to show you 4 of them, and the last one we'll do after this workshop. So the 5 parts are pre-negotiation, where you discuss and decide what you will do in this session. And then you do an induction, which takes the other person into the trance. Then in the trance, you'll do whatever things you want to do. And then you bring them safely out of trance so that they are in a comfortable position after that. And remember that in trance, people are more suggestible than normal. So it's a good thing to remind people that when they come out of trance, that they're going to be refreshed and awake and feeling good, unless they wanted to feel something else when they come out of the trance, so that you don't accidentally leave some sort of emotions from the trance lingering after it. And after you brought them up, you could repeat the putting them back down and doing fun stuff as many times as you want to. Just be aware that if you do that a lot of time, people don't actually come fully back out of trance. That's called fractionation, but I won't go into that today. And the last bit is doing aftercare. So talking through what you did, making sure that the person who was hypnotized is okay, possibly cuddling or whatever is the sort of prepared way for them to feel good afterwards. If you'd like to move over there so that you can see better, I think it will be useful. I think there's a few chairs available still. So in our case, we have pre-negotiated the things that we're going to present today. But we will go through quickly now here so that you'll see. So you're going to be the demo station subject today. And we were planning on using the magnetic fingers and the balance for putting you in a trance. Is that cool?
Yes.
And then let me see what we're going to do. We were going to do the legs that you can't move, right? Then we're going to check. So we're going to make you forget where you are, so that you will believe whatever I tell you, right? Then we're going to remove your shyness and make it very easy for you to speak in front of an audience. And after that, I'm going to take questions from you, so that you can ask about how does it feel to be in a trance or to be a subject. But please remember, only questions about hypnotic trances and how that feels. Then we're going to show, do this behavior modification where you cannot look up from the floor, okay? To make this all a bit easier, I'm going to make it so that when I snap my fingers, if you're in trance, you're going to come out of trance, and if you're not in a trance, you're going to fall back into trance so that we can modify them, okay? So, let's start. Make sure that you have a comfortable position, and then put your hands, cross your hands so that you very strongly can bring your palms together, and take your index fingers about an inch apart. And now can you imagine that there's magnets in those fingers and they start pulling each other. The stronger they get, the closer your fingers get, and the closer your fingers get, the stronger they get, and they just get closer and closer and closer until they touch like that. That's great. And just put your hands away and relax them. Next, can you imagine the balloon attached to your wrist? A helium balloon that slightly lifts your hand up. Yes, you can. You can also smile if you want to answer yes. It's not quite enough to lift your hand up, but you can still feel it. I'll add another balloon there, and another, so that the lift becomes stronger, and a couple more and more, so that the lift gets stronger and stronger. And even though your hand is completely relaxed, it's going to start rising up, because there's so many balloons that it will just rise up. And I'll put a few more balloons, and now it's starting to rise up and higher, and a couple more balloons to just make the hand lift. And one more, and just maybe come up just like that, and just a few more, just like that. That's great. And next, I'm going to cut all those balloons away. And your hand is so relaxed that it will just drop like a rock when I cut them away. And when your hand drops, you also will drop deep into the trance. Are you ready? Okay, and snap. And just fall deeper and deeper. And now today, while we're in this session, in this workshop, if I snap my fingers, you will come back out of trance if you're in trance, or you will fall back into a trance if you were not in a trance. So always alternating your state. Can you do that for me? And give me a big smile when you've done it. That's right. Okay, that's great. And next, can you forget where we are? So that you have no clue as to where we are. And you will definitely want to know. And you will believe whatever I tell you. And your mind will fill in all the details. So that you can figure out how we actually got there, and you have a ready-made story for that. Give me a big smile when you've done that. That's great. And then when I snap my fingers, you come out of trance like this. Hey, how are you feeling? Would you like to have some water?
I'm not sure where we are.
We're ready.
Okay. Yeah.
Remember how we got here a couple of days back?
Yeah. I somehow forgot.
So, have you had a jet lag?
Yeah, I did a pretty bad one.
Okay, been tired.
Yes, very tired. Didn't feel like exploring at all. But I'm good now.
But it's nice to have this convention here.
Yeah.
You know, they decided to have a sort of side event of Ropecon in Beijing.
It's nice. I have some friends here that I'm sure will enjoy it.
Okay. Yeah, it's the last day of the event already. And we had a lot of fun yesterday giving another presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Okay. And now, when you come back from the trance next time, you will remember where we are. And you won't believe me in whatever I tell you any longer. Give me a smile when you've done that. That's great. Okay, please take a comfortable position because soon you won't be able to move your legs. Okay, so can you imagine what would happen if you couldn't move your legs or feet at all? Can you? Okay, do that and give me a big nice smile. That's right. That's great. So how does that feel? Can you get up and get yourself a glass for that? Would you like to have some coffee?
I'm good.
You're good. Okay. So how does it feel not being able to move?
I prefer to move them.
Okay. Now, you're usually a little bit shy, right? Okay, so can you just put the shyness away for the rest of today's workshop? And remember that you're actually a very natural speaker and you're good at speaking and good at being in front of the stage. Can you do that for me? And give me a big smile when you've done it. Okay, great. Okay, and now it's time for questions, so you can ask her about how it feels or how things she feels things work.
No question.
How does it feel to enter the trance?
For me, it's kind of like falling asleep in a way, but not fully. And it's very relaxing. And overall, the whole experience is very relaxing. And I kind of feel these little tingles in the back of my head and neck and sometimes fingers, not always, but. And yeah, it's very relaxing and it's kind of like happy, makes me happy.
Is it more difficult or just the same to fall into a trance in front of many people you don't know, or is it, yeah?
I think it's the same. I didn't notice any difference, honestly.
For some people, I've noticed that it's more difficult to do in front of an audience.
I think that that's because of the feeling of safety or something
Yeah.
like that.
Or shame, or.
But I think that since we agreed what we're gonna do and I'm prepared for this, I think that makes it easier for me.
Yeah.
Because I know how this is gonna work.
So have you sometimes failed to hypnotize that you've tried to put under, but you couldn't enter the trance?
Not yet, but I haven't tried it many times, so.
Okay.
I think this is something like the
Yeah.
time that I hypnotized her.
Okay, I thought that this is something like you have been been doing for years, and that's why it's so easy for you.
I started like 3 weeks ago.
Does it feel scary? I mean, sometimes things that you have to do, or you're able to do things that don't maybe feel normal, like not being able to move your limbs or something. Does it feel scary not being able to do it?
Sort of not, because I recognize him, I know who he is, and it doesn't freak me out, but it's quite fascinating. It's still the first time I tried things that was so fascinating.
So, but of course you are always aware that it's gonna pass and you'll be able to move them afterwards and
Yeah.
okay, away, yes.
And I would imagine that if there was a fire alarm, you would just get up and walk.
I sure hope so.
At least with my wife, when I hypnotized her, if one of our kids screams in their sleep on the other room, even if she has been completely unable to move, she just gets up and goes there. So it's a state of mind that produces the results, and that is only maintained as long as it is safe to do so. In her case, which is very understandable, when the child is screaming, it is no longer safe to be in that state. So,
Yeah.
For me, it's if I'm meditating, I kind of block out the background noises, some screams in the backyard or anything. But then when my dog starts to bark, I immediately I can't focus anymore. So it probably would be the same with.
So if your dog starts barking, you just get up and walk.
Yeah. Any more questions? You look like you have a question.
Okay, and now you can again move your legs and feet. They're just totally normal. But instead, when you come out of this trance, you will find out that you can't look up, you can only look at the floor. Can you do that for me? Give me a big smile when you're ready. Yeah, like that. And then How does this feel?
Prefer to look at people.
Can
It's
you,
nicer to move my.
can you look at me?
No,
Why not?
because we told me not to. No, I can't.
Mhm.
Can't look at anyone. I can still take questions.
Any last questions before we end the demonstration? Yeah.
Does it feel like you're not physically able to look anywhere else? Or you're not allowed to?
It's, if I try, I can't, so I guess it's, I don't know, physical, I guess.
Does it feel like there's like rules you can't stop obeying or something like that, or is it like your body is changed so you can't?
I can't honestly explain. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Can you imagine looking at someone's eyes?
I can.
So I found out that different people, their brains operate in different ways. So there could be one person for whom this was sort of that their mind just decided that they cannot move their eyes up or their head up so that they would look up, and that would be the sort of way they achieve this. And some other person could sort of construct this social rule that it is not that I cannot move my eyes up. Similarly, like I cannot go to the street and take my clothes off. And another person might interpret it in a different way and do a different sort of way of doing this. So everybody is very different. And one of the things that, okay, now when I bring you back from the trance, all the different things that we changed today will go back to normal, and none of the triggers or changes I made are valid anymore. Can you do that for me? And I'm going to count to 5, and when I get to 5, you're going to be totally normal, feeling good and relaxed. Well, actually very alert. And just like you'd have a small rest and you're feeling really refreshed. Okay? 1, 2, and starting to get up. And 3, and 4, almost there. And 5, and you're just back and can start moving and open your eyes. So where was I before? So everybody does things differently, and one of the things that I really like about the hypnosis is that you learn new things about the person you are doing it with. I've been together with my wife for almost 12 years, and we've been living together for 11 years. And when we started playing with hypnosis, there's so much new that I have learned about her after that. And we haven't really done a whole lot of hypnosis, but you really have to sort of go in and start to understand what are the ways, sort of actual metaphors and ways in which the other person thinks. You play with those, so you learn a whole new structure about how the other person thinks. And you also learn to understand in a much deeper way that we are all very, very different, even though we are in some ways really similar. So any questions before I let her back into her seat and continue with the...
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you said that if I wouldn't want to do something,
Yeah.
I would probably not take that suggestion. But would I step out of the trance, or would I just, when you say, like, when you give me the suggestion, would I just ignore it, or how would that work?
I think people do respond differently. So some people, if you have a strong desire to please others, it might be that the desire to please would actually override the hesitation you had about doing something, and you would end up doing the thing you didn't want to. Or it could be that you just laugh and say, no, I'm not going to do that, and stay in trance. Or it could be that you snap out of trance. It really depends on the person and sort of what kind of tools you have available for you. Okay, yeah.
So I suspect it also depends greatly on the sort of cultural predisposition, because that really some older come from stage hypnotists, they were able to use inductions that just don't work anymore, because people don't think hypnosis works like that.
Well, I think there's a lot of old style inductions that they use. They actually work if you frame them right.
Exactly, and you used to be able to just do them. Now if you want to do them, you need to provide a framework for that first.
Yeah.
And I think it might be sort of similar. That what is your expectation? What happens when you are given a direction you don't want to follow?
Yeah.
Do you have a choice? Do you snap out of trance? Do you just laugh?
Yeah. This gets us back to one of the sort of, this is a really good sort of bridge to my next topic, which is safety. Where one of the things that what we believe about hypnosis affects how hypnosis works for us. And the reason for that is that it's about our belief systems that we're playing with. And if you, for example, believe that the subject cannot decide for themselves whether they want to do something, and if you spread that kind of belief, it will make it harder for hypnotic subjects to say no. Whereas if you make it sort of understandable that going into a trance is a skill, and that you can say no while you're in a trance, it might be difficult for various reasons, it's much more likely that people can say no and will not do the things they don't want to. So that's actually a very important safety thing. How do you talk about what kind of subjects do and so on, especially since some of the people who are into hypnosis are into it because they want to feel under control. They want to feel that they have no control over their minds or over their bodies, because that can be really hard. And if you do that, you have kind of a contradiction between generally for the population you should do this, but with this person you should do this. And there's actually some ways in which you can sort of bridge these two. For example, you can say that, generally for the population, it works like you can always resist. But with you, we can build this connection that makes it harder and harder to resist until you cannot, even though you wanted to. And then it sort of becomes part of this sort of connection and relationship that we have, rather than part of the sort of general paradigm for hypnosis. Comments, questions? A couple of other safety things. One is always talk through what you're doing, especially when you're working with somebody who's new or you're new yourself. And then ask the person being hypnotized whether there might be any sort of trauma or sort of physiological issues or psychological issues or anything that might be related to. Let's say you're doing some kind of hypnosis, sort of induction where the other person gets very loose and they are they sitting in a place where they will be all right if they fall off. These kind of simple things. And so on. So that's one. The other one is you should always suggestions. So when you're doing suggestions when the other person is in trance, what you're building is kind of a framework. You could say building a magic circle where the play happens. And you don't usually want the magic circle to be their whole life. So it's much better to say that it's this room now that we're here together, but once we leave, it's gone. So that once you're done with that, then it's sort of can be left there so that you can bring it back if you want to, but it's not there all the time. And even if you want to play with something that works continuously, you should be thinking about what kind of security things should you want to do. Yeah.
This is actually something I was already for a few moments thinking about to ask about. It's like about the concept of the outsiders, that if you like, I started thinking of it when you talked about the person making about like a social rule of not looking people in the eye. This is something that could be like easily transferred into like everyday life. You could have somebody to believe that like, okay, they're starting to feel like a handmade in an Atwood novel or something like that. You can't look anybody in the eye, and you should just stay out of the way and obey and stuff like that. And of course there wouldn't be like many like concrete obstacles to that, because the society will just let you go and stay out of the way you want to. But I'm thinking about like, is it acceptable, is it ethical to expose those outsiders, or all the people that are just living outside of the hypnosis and outside of the relationship, to expose them to this kind of play that goes on, and that is not the way that person in question would like normally act.
Well, I think there's sort of, if the kind of things that you're doing with hypnosis are within socially accepted realm, or even a little bit outside of it, but within sort of something that is, let's say, ethically right. I don't start defining what is ethically right, but then I would say that it probably is okay to do them so that they also show when you're outside with other people who don't know anything about it. They don't have to know that there's hypnosis going on, they just will observe that this is the way that you behave. So you could have somebody who's always walking 2 steps behind their partner or something like that. And somebody might think that's odd, but people do a lot of odd things, and it's not something that you can't expose others to. But if you were to make a trigger that gives a person an orgasm, and you made that trigger be whenever they shake hands with somebody, I think that would be totally ethically wrong, because you would be sort of pushing sort of sexual things to people who never consented to it. So there's a sort of line, and it's not in whether you use hypnosis, but more as in, are you pushing some behavior or things on other people that they should not be, that they haven't consented to.
I'm still a little bit hesitant, because I think that at least, okay, this rule is fine with like passers by and people you just meet in the grocery store or something like that. But how about like people, if you're like meeting your child's teachers or attending a family event or something like that, don't those people have kind of right to know the real person and not the pattern or something? I know there are no right or wrong answers here, but this is something
I would rather like to think about it in sort of what is a good idea to do. You know, there's a difference between what kind of things it would be okay to do and what kind of things it's a good idea to do. And if you're doing any kind of long-term things, I think it's much more important to think about, is it a good idea for my partner to always be looking down when they go to work or when they talk to the teachers of their children and so on, or not? Because, you know, somebody might think that this is a sort of, we can manage that and that it's a good idea, but they will probably be a very different person from whom I am. I would not think that to be a good idea, and so.
Yes, it seems to me that there's sort of the ethical questions would sort of be whether the behavior comes out of hypnosis or not doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
That if it's a good idea to do, this is not problematic to do as a game without hypnosis involved, then the fact that there's hypnosis involved doesn't change it. It just broadens maybe the scope of possible.
Yes.
Actually, my question, of course, is also linked to, like, if it can be, if it's ethical to do in a game, or like to play these things, or like live these things in hypnosis, it really doesn't matter, but I think the ethical question is still there.
I think the ethical questions are there. I think it's also important to understand that there's no one box that these are the real behaviors that the person does, and these are the hypnotic behaviors. The hypnotic behaviors are real, that person's behaviors. If there's some way in which their mind sort of reinforces that behavior, then it just is one sort of permanent part of their persona. If there's no reinforcement inside their mind or elsewhere from sort of outside, then it will probably vanish like a lot of other behaviors that we have. So you can't really put them in neat boxes and say that this is hypnotic behavior and this is a real person, because those don't really exist. It's just part of things that the mind does. I was just today in emotions lecture where the lecturer told us that there's no sort of LARP emotions. All the emotions that you feel in the LARP are real emotions felt by you. It's just that we frame it so that it's part of the LARP magic circle, which sort of make them somehow different from others, but at its basis, they're real emotions. The same applies to here. So, but basically, getting back to safety, make sure you limit the where does it work, when does it work, and in what social context. If you remember to always limit by these three, you'll probably be doing quite well. For example, getting this sort of orgasm trigger, you might want to say that it only works if it is safe for you to do so. So that when you're driving, your mind doesn't have to start wondering, is it safe for me now? So can I let this trigger happen now or not? So, and start by doing strong limitations and then learn bit by bit about losing them up rather than starting broadly and then fucking up and then figuring out what you should limit to not fuck up again. So start with a small box. So that's quickly my thing about safety. Then there's a number of things that I would love to do in the LARP. And these are ideas. I'm not a LARP maker, but I could sort of be part of a team where I would do sort of hypnosis things if somebody wants to do that. So for example, you can play with emotions. So you could tie, for example, for some group of players, a strong emotion to a certain place. It could be happiness or fear or whatever you like, or you could have this strong sort of feeling of safety that some of the characters would have for a certain person. Or you could do this kind of behavior modification so that there would be a group of people who would have certain inbuilt ways of behaving and signaling within each other that they unconsciously do and also read, so that they could recognize each other, perhaps communicate in ways that others can't see.
This is so cool because in labs I've attended to, there are lots of like GM clues or all kinds of post-it little paper pieces or something like that that says that okay, now when you see this person you will feel like this, or now every time you okay, when you see this person or something you will start to think that you have seen them somewhere or something like that. It would be so cool not to know these in beforehand and just react.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things I would love to do is, since some people are perfectly capable of forgetting things, so you could prep the person, a player, that you know this person because they're somebody important, but you will forget about knowing them until they appear. And you would have no clue about such a person existing, but when they come, you will know that this is the brother that was dead for 20 years, and you will be surprised about them being there.
Yeah.
So that is something that you could do. Or you could set a mood for a game with one person we're talking about doing sort of hypnotizing people so that they felt that they don't want to solve their problems. Because a lot of the time when you go into a LARP, there's kind of this expectation that you have this bucket list of problems that you have to solve. And it would be kind of fun to make a game where you prep the players that the problems are there to exist for another day, not for you to solve. So that would be the sort of underlying feeling for everybody. And you would probably get quite different kind of a play from that.
So I do a lot of LARPs, and one issue that I have with profiles is that it's so hard to write how the person actually behaves if that contradicts what they think about themselves. So something like that could also work for like you think you're a nice person, but you're actually being a dick to everybody, but they just don't realize it, So some kind of underlying wiring there could help that as well. But I don't know how I guess it just should be really simple, like one little thing, I guess.
Yeah, well, if you think about, for example, how did it feel for you to be here and be changed from a shy person to not shy at all? Can you describe that?
I didn't I don't know how to say this, but it felt nice to be able to talk and answer the questions and not feel shy. But I don't, at that moment somehow I didn't think about that I ever was shy,
Yeah.
It just felt very natural and like I always be like this.
So you can also help people sort of get into some sort of way of behaving that your character has. Like if you're a little shy, you might be able to get a small change that you're not thinking about. You just forget about the shyness for the whole game, or so on.
If you're thinking about yourself, like arranging your LARP, okay, you don't do that, but if you did, and you were kind of the only hypnotizer person around, would it be like possible for you to handle, for example, 15 people prepped in different ways and handle this whole network of people with different concepts of the game reality and
I think so. For the first game, I would prefer to have, let's say, half a dozen players, like 3 to 6 players, so that you can test it. There's sort of few enough that if there's some person having a problem that needs my help, I don't have 5 of them that I have to deal with at the same time. And it's sort of also more manageable in the sort of what kind of things are happening here and how much work it is and so on. And then I'm hoping that I could teach a couple of people who would help me with that. So I would imagine that I probably would not want to do complex things for more than 5 people per one hypnotist, and that might be too much. Simple things you could do probably for a bigger group, like let's say a group trance for all the dwarves that brings out aggression and the sort of distrust whenever they see an elf would be sort of a nice thing to do.
Or like feeling of like shortness because it's really stupid if people cast players based on their height. For example, tall people to elves or short people to dwarves. That it would be so great that it would not matter at all how a player looks, and everybody thought that okay, the elves are so tall and or the dwarves are so short that they can't reach places or something like that.
But basically, the bigger the size of the group gets, I would imagine the sort of more variance you would have in the outcomes, because if you do stuff for a group like this, you remember the initial exercise in sort of imagining things, how different you all were. And that's just sort of one aspect. So in order to do that kind of thing efficiently, you would probably want to have reasonably small groups, and even if you do a group trance for the people, you might have a couple of people for whom that doesn't work. So do you then take them separately to work with them, or do you just let them have a worse experience? Difficult questions. But I know that it would be cool to start somewhere and see what you can do, and then sort of start figuring out how to do that on scale.
2 questions. One is about auto hypnosis. You haven't mentioned it at all. A couple words about that would be really interesting. And second is sources about recreational hypnosis.
So, recreational hypnosis sources, I will give you 3 books to read. One is, 2 are by Mark Wiseman, I will write them down in a minute, called Mind Play and Mind Play Study Guide. Those are about erotic hypnosis. And then I always forget the name of the other one, so if you give me a minute second.
Maybe it's still there.
So Anthony Jacquin, Reality is Plastic. I'll see if they're still here. Yes. So Anthony Jacquin, Reality is Plastic, E missing. Art of for impromptu hypnosis. He's from the street hypnosis community, stage hypnosis. These are from the erotic hypnosis community. So you can also do things like hypnotic bondage or play with arousal. There's actually a really interesting thing, which is that people who are, the emotions that we have and the physiological state we have related to those emotions, they're not exactly the same. So there's, for example, the state of arousal physiologically is the same for sexual arousal, for fear, for anxiety and euphoria, if I remember correctly. And you can play around with those. So you can turn fear into sexual arousal or euphoria or anxiety and play with those if you want to, which also might make it interesting for certain kind of games. There was a really interesting study back in the day in the States where in Washington State, there's this bridge that is really narrow and it looks like you're going to fall off. And it's really anxiety inducing to cross it. And they made a study where they made students cross that bridge or the sturdier bridge that is not feel dangerous at all. And then they had a beautiful woman interviewing them. They were, I think, all male students in this study. And what they were actually studying was how many of the students thought that they had an infatuation with the interview. And the outcome was that those who crossed the sort of the fear-inducing bridge, they sort of mistakenly sort of attributed the feelings and the state of their body to the woman who was interviewing them, and one of them asked for their number and called back later on to ask them for a date or something, whereas the ones who did the safe bridge crossing didn't. So we humans are really interesting. We pick up a cue and then we decide what the emotion is if it's coming from the physiological state that we have. So auto or self-hypnosis. I was actually saying that for the last. Let's see how much time. We only have a couple of minutes. So you can do self-hypnosis. There's a script in the mind play for how to do that. And one of the things that I've been thinking about for LARP community would be if we could teach people, players, to do self-hypnosis. You can just take 10 minutes each night. And then once you know how to get into a trance, you write down some part of the background of the character or something that is important in a language that is sort of goes well with the hypnotic suggestions. And you either read it when you're in a trance or you read it into a mic before and you put earphones and you let that script sort of turn that something into reality. So you, for example, take some scene that has happened to the character sometime before and let your mind create that scene in your head, just like you did in the visualization today. And then instead of trying to think that there was this thing, you would actually have a memory of that thing happening. And I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you are talking about how cool everything is, what if something went wrong? Something happens and how badly things can be.
So things going wrong. There's starting with the question, can you get out of trance? Yes. The worst that can happen is that it takes some time, or that you fall asleep and you will be out of trance once once you wake up. So, but it takes some time. I know a person who's a good experienced subject, and they have played a lot with fractionation, dropping a person in a trance and coming up and doing this, which tends to make the trance and waking state much. They're both kind of like a trance. And she had an experience where it took her like 2 hours to get out on her own because the hypnotist thought that she had fallen asleep and everything was okay. So I think that would be on this side kind of the worst that would happen. Then another thing that can happen is that you can accidentally push a button that triggers something unpleasant in that person. It could be some trauma or it could be some other not fun thing. And these kind of things are called abreactions in sort of therapeutic community. And what you should do as a hypnotist then is to sort of just be there with them and reassure that everything will be okay. As you know, any kind of trauma, if you're triggered, it'll take time to sort of get that out of your system, but it does. It's not horribly dangerous, but it's unpleasant. And then, what else? Then there are sort of things that you can do on the deep end of the pool, for which I just say that don't try to do them until you know enough to know what kind of dangers there are. So if you start...
That I was thinking when you were talking about who are spreading aggression to else, that if you have like some role players who are hypnotized to get aggression, and then you have results not so fun.
The way that I would do that is that I would reinforce the sort of safety rules of the LARP when the people are in a trance, so that I would just suggest to them that any sort of feelings of aggression they will be responding within the sort of rules of the LARP, and then go through what are the ways in which it is okay to express that. And going into the deep end is that you can make people forget things, you can change their memories. So anybody heard of gaslighting? You can do that, but don't. Unless you know what you're doing and the person who's being hypnotized really, really wants to experience that, and then it can be really hot. You can sort of, over longer term, hypnotizing someone, you can change how they behave, change what kind of things reward them, you can change all kinds of things. So you're playing in the sort of deep end of kinky shit, you could say. So if you ever want to go there, be prepared to learn a lot about safety and other things, and there's no way I can cover sort of any reasonable amount of things about those in this workshop. Yeah.
Do you know if there's any like trained therapists, not hypnotherapists, but any psychotherapists of any kind in Finland that would be able to handle those if those things went wrong? Because I'm not sure about people, but I'm not sure if there would be like resources that would be understanding and able to walk people through those experiences going bad.
I think if you couldn't find any here, I'm sure that, I know that there are plenty of therapists doing hypnotherapy in the global sort of erotic hypnosis community who would be able to help in that kind of a situation. And today we do have things like Skype and so on, so you can actually do these kind of things over long distance. And that especially for things like what if you had somebody play with you who is not so ethical or not so competent. Another thing that you can think about if you're doing any long-term play is to figure out as much as possible, make everything reversible. So as an example, instead of erasing somebody's memories, which can be fun, how about letting the person create a pensieve in their mind where they put those memories, so they will not remember them ever unless they go back to the pensieve. But you can make it so that if the relationship ever ends, they can go themselves to the pensieve and get them all back, and then they'll have all the memories that they had lost, which is sort of a nice safety mechanism for doing that kind of play. But there's a lot of things that you can do to make sure that the person is safe, but I think we're now a few minutes past over time, so we'll have to continue this discussion with a cup of coffee or something else if someone wants to. So thank you very much.